This podcast discusses paranormal activity and other topics some might find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised.
Is it a chill or a ghostly breeze? A knock, a tap, what do you believe? Ghosts, gossip, gather around where the lost and the haunted are found. Ghosts, gossip, don't make a sound. Truth or tales, we'll dig it out.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Ghost Gossip. Today, I have another podcaster with me he's amazing, he's talented, and he has two podcasts, One Good Scare and The Red Treehouse. Welcome, Will.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited. I'm excited to talk with you.
I'm so excited you're here. I was on your podcast not too long ago, and it was really fun. Our conversation really didn't finish because I left you speechless a few times, and I was like, but I didn't even get to tell you my story. And then I had decided in 2026, I want more podcasters to come on, especially paranormal podcasters or horror podcasters or just podcasters, because we have so much fun. And so I was like, I got to message Will. And here you are, like 2 days later, here you are. So thank
Yeah.
you.
The schedule worked out.
Mhm.
We're in the process of moving. And I work from home. So that's also nice. I just sort of flex my time as we go. So yeah,
Yes.
it's been great.
That is nice. And I appreciate you. Such short notice. You told me your schedule, and I was like, okay. And then my schedule, and I was like, can you do Tuesday? And you're like, yes. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, perfect timing." So to start, tell everybody about you and your podcast.
Man, this is the hardest question for me to answer.
Really?
Yeah. It's like I have 1,000 things running through my head and then I got to pick and choose a couple. All right, so I'm Will. I am the host of two shows, 2.5 shows. I'll explain that point five in a second.
Thank you.
The Red Treehouse, which is sort of the OG flagship show, the one that I love the most out of all the things, where I tell you scary stories to keep you up at night. And every episode we cover a thing that's spooky, creepy, eerie, unexplained, mysterious, weird, true crime-ish, always with a paranormal, supernatural bent. I love it. I hate it at the same time, but I love it in this like deep way.
I get it.
And then I just started a couple months back, sort of going back to my first love, which is horror movies, One Good Scare. And it's sort of a storytelling approach to walking through a specific movie. So 2 parts to the show. I usually will give you a full scene by scene. This is what the movie is, sort of a visual aid, especially for folks who love horror but don't love horror movies. And my wife is one of them. And yes, part 2 is usually a guest interview or just sort of me exploring themes, analyzing the film, behind the scenes stuff. The point 5, though, is this sort of more investigative, deeper dive into specific stories. So season 1 right now is called The Possession Files, The Trials of Annalise Michel.
Yes. I've seen that.
So it runs on the Red Treehouse just because, as I was thinking about it, it's like I don't really want to start a whole new show with
Right.
no listeners. Let me tie it to the Red Treehouse as sort of this exclusive thing, but then also create its own thing so that by season 2 or season 3, it's sort of hopefully floating on its own,
Mhm.
and not sinking by itself. So
Gotcha.
those are sort of the 3. I am married. My wife and I have been married almost 19 years. I
Wow.
am
Congratulations.
significantly older than I look, guys. I know.
That
I
Puerto Rican
feel
gene. We age well. Puerto Ricans
that
age
is
well.
true. That
Yeah.
is true. I respect that. That's true. I feel older than I am, though. So there's also that part of
Especially
it.
right now.
Yes. Raising 3 teenagers, daughter, 2 sons. We're in the midst of moving. We have all the things going on while still trying to do full-time jobs and, publish shows. So
And be parents. Like,
and be parents, which, guys, raising teenagers is not for the faint of heart.
no, maybe that's what this whole podcast
Oh,
episode will be about, because that's a horror paranormal show all on its own, because I have 3 teenagers as well.
yes, it's a thing. The personalities, the drama, the
The
questions,
drama. the
assumed wisdom that they
attitude.
have, all these things. It's like, what the hell? What the hell?
Where have you found your audacity? Is it on sale somewhere?
Huh?
Because
Huh?
I can't even with you. That's how I am. Because 'cause I'm like,
Yeah. I mean, there are times my wife and I will just my one of the kids will say something. We'll look at each other like like give us this each other this look and then look at the kid and be like, I don't even have words. And like I do words for a living and so does my wife. She's a therapist. And we have no English words. And so sometimes I resort to Spanish because it's easier and they
"I do
don't
too."
understand it quite as much. But usually it's like, we'll figure this out later, guys. Just give us a minute, you know?
Yeah,
So
so
we love
I know
them.
very little Spanish, but they know when I start speaking very broken Spanish, the few lines that I know in Spanish, they know that I am done and
It's a
I'm
thing.
about to, like, lose my mind, just lose my mind.
It's a thing. And I respect and appreciate my mom a whole lot more now than I did, when I was a kid and a teenager and she was stuck in the same place that my wife and I are at now. So yeah.
Mhm. Does she, like, sit there and like, "I told you."
She I think she takes great satisfaction at times,
My mom does
like,
too.
"Oh, I
I'm like
remember this," and that's all she'll say, and it's like, "I see what you're doing."
my mom just kinda giggles, and I always talk about my mom. Every episode, I mention my mom. I'm like, "Hey, mom. Hey, mom." She listens to every episode, but every once in a while, she'll just start kinda giggling. I'm like, why are you laughing?" She goes, "Because you sound like me." And
Uh-huh.
I was like, "Uh-huh, okay, yeah. I know. I know. I'm
And we
sorry."
always I'm not gonna be like my parents, not in a bad way, just like I'm gonna be my own
Right.
do my own
Yeah,
thing, and like, "I
I
got
know
this shit
better.
figured out," and then
Uh-huh. Here we
you
are.
just don't realize how close you are to them
Mhm.
until after the fact, right? Like, it's always, like, looking back, like, "Holy shit, I sounded like my dad," or like, "That's something my mom would say or do," and
Mhm. If
yeah.
I can be half as great a parent as my mom, then I am doing something right, you
Yeah,
know? But when I was
agreed.
my daughter's age, it was like, I am not gonna be like my mom. She doesn't understand. My mom knew some things, man.
Uh-huh.
And now my kids are learning because of my abilities, they have very little room
Yeah.
for anything. Like, I'm a human lie detector.
Yeah,
They can
that's my
say
wife
something.
for sure.
Oh, yeah. They'll say something, and I'll be like, "Mm." I'll be like, "You got one more time to tell me the truth." And they're like,
Yep.
"Oh,
And
bro."
my wife has been encouraging me to, like, tap into that intuition a little bit more, and
Yes.
so, I remember when it was maybe a few weeks back, one of the kids just something just seemed a little different. I won't say off, and I won't assume, like, something bad, it just the energy in the room felt a little different than it
Off.
normally would, and so they went away, and I looked at my wife and I was like, "Hey, something feels different here." She's like, "Well, what do you mean?" And so she's, like, trying to, like, get me to explain it. I was like, I don't know yet. And so she's like, "Well, call them back down and let's figure it out." And it wasn't really anything major. There was just, like, a little thing, but she's like, "See? Like, see what happens?" And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Oh,
Yes.
oh," you know?
My husband too. Like, he's sensitive. He's very intuitive, but sometimes I love him, but sometimes he's real dense. And I'm like, but he's super intuitive. Like, he really is, and he's very in tune with his feelings as well, which I love because I think that more men should be because,
Sure.
especially
Yeah.
at this age, y'all I'm not sure about you, but I know like him, he was raised, you don't feel, you don't talk, you don't do this, you don't do
Yeah.
that, you know? And he's learning because he's married to me that we need to talk. If you're feeling a
Yeah.
certain kind of way, I know that I can sense things, but you need to communicate them with me.
Yeah, for
Don't let
sure.
me just be a mind reader and get it wrong. Communicate with me. You need to communicate with the kids. You don't have to scream at the kids. You can communicate with the kids. They are
Yeah,
human beings. They have
for sure.
feelings, and you have to remember you have to have age appropriate communication because they are teenagers and
Yeah.
their brains are not developed yet, but you can still communicate.
Yeah. I mean, there are 20-something-year-olds whose brains are still,
You got that right.
you know,
Mhm.
skulls
So,
are
yeah.
still fusing, guys.
Welcome to the Parent Podcast. Welcome. We are
The
now
real horrors, the true
you got
horrors.
that's gonna be the title of this episode, The Real Horror Parenting. No. Teenagers. So, your red tree house, you say something every time you start, and it always just warms my heart, but it also makes me a little sad. Now, did you start your podcast for your father or in honor of your father?
I didn't. So I started the show in September of 2023 on my daughter's birthday, actually, sort of in honor of her, because she was the one who sort of compelled me to, like, hey, dad, you should do this. And so I said, okay, which I kind of regret a little bit now because every anniversary, I'm like, I can't celebrate the red treehouse because, like, it's my daughter's actual birth, like my actual daughter's birthday. Like, I'm like conflicted. So I started the show September 23. My dad got sick with what we learned was stage 4 lung cancer
Mm,
in December of 23. So just a few months later. But for those 3.5 months or so in the early stages of the show, he and I were talking multiple times a week. We were texting about it. We used to call each other Pop. Like, it was just a weird thing. Like, he'd call me Pop, I'd call him up Pop. And he'd be like, I love that episode, or you should do an episode on this. Or I would text him, Dad, what do you think about this episode? And, we just go back and forth. And then he got sick. And in January of 24, right at the start of 24, we got the official diagnosis. Well, he died 25 days after his diagnosis. He got started having symptoms, went for tests, got the results, the biopsy results, and a little over 3 weeks later, he was gone. And so I had a real tug of war about, do I just pause the show indefinitely just through the grieving process? How do I handle this? And I remember my mom, she came to stay with us a few weeks after my dad passed, and she said, well, what do you think your dad would want? And I was like, well, I think he would want me to keep it going. She's like, so keep it going. And I said, yeah, but it feels off, right?
yeah.
Like, I'm telling these stories while also trying to get through all of this stuff. Like, and it wasn't just me, right? My wife and kids, my mom, my siblings were all navigating this stuff, whole new life. And I said, you know what? He loved the show. I'm just gonna dedicate it to him. And initially, it was just gonna be a one-time thing. But in the first episode after he died, where I dedicated the show to him, I want to say it was episode 33 or 34, somewhere in there, maybe a little later, maybe closer to 40. I recorded that one line. The Red Treehouse is dedicated to my dad. I love you, Pop. I recorded that one line maybe 2 dozen times because I couldn't make it through the 10 words, right? And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to say this initially. I've recorded it and then would copy it into the new episodes. And I was like, no, like, I think I just need to sort of say it. And so every episode, that "I love you, dad," "Red Treehouse is dedicated to my dad, I love you, Pop," that's a fresh me saying it as I record. And so the show is it I say that the show belongs to him because it's sort of the bridge that connected us in the months leading up to his sickness and then, his passing. So, yeah, it wasn't in honor of him, but it is now.
I
That's a
love
long way
that.
to say that.
Ugh, getting choked up a little. So sorry. Ugh, sorry, guys. I love it. I love it every time. Like, the first time I heard it, I remember the first time I listened to one of your episodes, I was walking around the neighborhood, and I had
Mhm.
my earbuds in, and I was like, "Walking, walking, walking," and then you said it, and I just kinda stopped, and I was like, "No."
Yeah.
Like, okay, I might cry. I'm like, "Why?" Okay, but I do love it, and I am big on family. Family's one of the most important things, and, we've been going through some stuff where it's, like, learning how to adjust, when you have your own families, and it's, like, trying to juggle, like, this and then raising kids and then being a good daughter and son to your parents, and, it's very challenging, so, yes, I thought it was beautiful, you kinda had me hooked that day, and I will tell you, just kinda swerving off, I was listening to a podcast this morning and I was getting ready. Well, I thought the podcast had turned off. I thought my phone had turned off. Then all of a sudden, I start hearing noises coming out of my phone across the room, and it's one good scare that had in whatever episode you uploaded this week.
Yep.
In the beginning, it's like, you I have
Yep.
hauntings, okay? I about threw that phone right out the window. I was like, "What is that?" It was your episode. It was your episode
That's
coming
funny.
on.
It was probably the first 15 seconds.
It was.
So, if you have 30 seconds, 45 seconds for a quick story on the
Absolutely, go
opening to
on.
that one of my favorite horror movies is Halloween.
Mhm.
Maybe 20 minutes into the film, it's like the iconic line, Lori backs into Sheriff Brackett. He startles her, and he says, "Well, it's Halloween. Everyone's entitled to one good scare." And so I was like, "Oh, that's it. That's the name of the show." Well, initially, I had just like taken those words from from the movie and was just going to use that as my intro. And I was like, "Wait a minute. I feel like John Carpenter might come after my ass if I do this." And so I re-recorded it in my own voice, sort of warbled like that, pitch down and then
Mhm.
pitch slow. And I was like, "Okay, I think I can do this." John Carpenter, if I can't do this, I'm so sorry. Please give me another chance. It's just perfect. But every time I hear it, like I listen to shows at night and inevitably I fall asleep. Well, one good scare will sometimes come on, and that intro, that 15-second intro, will always jolt me out of sleep and scare the hell out of me for about a good 10 seconds after the fact. So
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah, you got me. I was brushing my teeth and I had my phone on my vanity and I thought the other episode I was listening to went off. So I thought my phone was off, brushing my teeth. And all of a sudden it sounded like something demonic coming from my phone. And I'm
That's
like,
it.
oh, it's just Will. Okay.
It's just
Okay.
me.
It was very good. It was very good. So, I don't do horror, which usually surprises people because I'm like, I will talk about ghosts and death and all things paranormal, but when it comes to horror, that stuff freaks me out.
Yeah. My wife is the same way. She super sensitive, intuitive to a lot of things, very perceptive, but also really a sensitive soul in terms of being careful and mindful of the things she lets in, the things she watches, the things she listens to, even the things she reads. And so
Yes.
one of the questions I get a lot is how do you navigate that? You love horror sort of unabashedly, right? I just watch what I watch, I listen to what I listen to, read what I read. But I think for my wife, there's a little bit more of a selective process in that. And so we are very, very particular about the horror movies we'll watch together. Can't have certain themes, can't have certain situations that are included in there. We tend to fast forward through some things if it shows up sort of unexpectedly or unannounced. So yeah, I get it. It's a thing. It's a real thing. And so I respect it for
I
sure.
love that you still do it with you, but you also respect her boundaries with it. I love that because my husband's the same way. We don't watch scary movies when I'm downstairs, and it's because of I feel very deeply and I don't have a photographic memory, but it's a very vivid memory, a very vivid imagination. And if I close my eyes, I will see it. If I see something one
Mhm.
time and it's gory, I will relive it over and over and over. That is wonderful. My husband's he's the same way. If he wants to watch something, he'll watch it downstairs, and then if I come downstairs, he'll pause it and let me kinda get through. I don't ask him because but he's it's wonderful to have a very supportive partner, like, he supports all my delusions, but he also supports protecting my sensitive
Yeah.
soul.
For sure. And, my wife and I are similar. I'll always float the idea, "Hey, we should watch this horror movie," or, even if she suggests, "Hey, we should watch a horror movie tonight," I'll say, "Well, what do you have in mind? What are you thinking?" And if she suggests it, we'll actually look at IMDb ratings and, like, content warnings and, we'll sort of adjust as needed. And if it's a thing where it's like I can sense her apprehension, I'll just say, "Hey, I'll watch this by myself and then let you know like if I think it's something that might be good or whatever." And she's pretty good with that. Like, not that I'm a gatekeeper for her as much as it's like, "Hey, I know there's some real deep sensitivities and even some things that, we just need to be careful with." And so I would say 9 times out of 10, when either one of us suggests a horror movie to watch, we end up watching something else. It's super rare, and so it's when it does happen, it's a lot of fun, but we also try to keep that awareness at the forefront.
That's nice, I like that because my husband and I are the same way, I love true crime, which is he's like, "You are such an oxymoron." I don't even know if that's the right word, but he's like, "You love true crime. You can learn about all things true crime. You can watch documentaries until you're blue in the face, but when it comes to horror, I'm like, because it's graphic, because it's showing it. And when you watch a documentary, they're not showing it. They're talking about human behavior. They're talking about the events. And sometimes, especially if it involves children, we'll either like not watch that one or we'll fast forward through certain things because both of us are highly sensitive to things that involve children, but I think it's good, especially for him, having 2 daughters, watching shows because it helps him get perspective for raising 2 young women.
Yeah. We tend to watch a whole lot more true crime than horror for sure. And I think it's probably because of what you mentioned. It is graphic in its description, but it's not graphic in its like in what you see. They're not, with rarity are they showing crime scene photos or, pools of blood, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Usually the description is enough. But I think it also is important, right? There's a part of it where we are raising kids and we watched the the documentaries on the Idaho murders, the college
Oh
student murders
gosh.
from
Yes.
a few years back, and it set us back a little bit mentally, emotionally, but,
Yes.
it was also important for us. Our daughter's gonna be 18 soon,
Yeah.
and so, like, "Hey, we want you to spread your wings in the world. We want you to make your way in the world. We're encouraging that. We're raising you to do that, but,
Mhm.
like, you also need to be super aware of
Yes.
others." You walking into a place with a smile doesn't mean that everybody's smiling back at you. And even if they are, that doesn't mean that smile's genuine. So, how do we navigate that? But then my boys, right? Because the truth is, whether we like it or not, statistically, men tend to be the most aggressive perpetrators of violent, sexual, domestic violence type of crimes.
Right.
And I will kill my boys before they
Yeah.
before the thought
Yes.
of a place like that, right? And
Yes.
so, on both fronts, my daughter to be mindful and aware and intuitive and trust her gut and trust her intuition. And if
Yes.
something feels off, run. Don't worry about anybody else. You run out of there. You call
Exactly.
us, we'll whatever. And for my boys, like, you need to be mindful that you need to be a safe human being for other human beings and not what you see so often in masculine culture. I don't
No, I
know,
I
whatever,
understand.
pseudo-masculine culture,
I understand. So I'll tell you what happened to me not too long ago. I was at the mall right before Christmas. I was going to Vegas, so I had ordered a jacket for one of my outfits. And when I got the jacket, the pocket was sewn in backwards. And so it was one of those weird, like, well, shit, I can't wear this with a sewn in pocket on my back. So I looked at online. They had the store in the mall and they had the coat in the store. So I was like, I'll just return it there. So I left the kids at home, ran to the mall because it's only like 10 minutes away from where we live, and I swapped out the coat and I was leaving. Well, you know the people in the middle of the mall and they try to like flat iron your hair or put stuff on your face?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Clean your
I'm
shoes?
like, "Yes, do not talk to me. If this doesn't say enough, like, leave me alone, I'm gonna be distracted." And I'm not distracted, but I'm appearing to be distracted. So I pulled out my phone and I was, like, texting my husband. I'm like, "Hey, I'm texting you because I don't want these people to talk to me." Well, I go up the escalator and I'm walking towards the exit of the mall, and there's this really big man. He and I make eye contact, and my feelers just went boom.
Mhm.
I turned to go out the mall, and he turned on my heels, so close that I could reach back and touch him. Well, there was a young man in front of me, and I told this story on a Listener Happenings episode with my husband, but it hasn't aired yet. So nobody has really heard it yet. But there was a young man in front of me, and I'm thinking late teens, early 20s. So what I don't even know what made me think of this. I sped up and got next to him like we were together. That man had no idea I was there, okay? He's just like he was looking at his phone, completely distracted, but I sped up and got next to him like I was walking with him, and that
Mhm.
man crossed over, but he held eye contact with me, and I was like, "He's gonna follow me to my car." And when I hit the doors, thank God it was raining. It was like a steady rain.
Mhm.
The man that was following me held back, and I took off to my car, and I told my
Yeah.
girls when I got home, and they were like, but mom, you're old." Like, not meaning it
Sure.
like, "You're old," but I'm like, "It doesn't matter. If I wasn't paying attention, that man would have followed me to my car."
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
it's so true. I mean,
it's
and I think when we talk to our boys about this kinda stuff, especially, it's like, hey, sometimes these things are not about anything other than opportunity and control, right? Like, if I can
oh, yeah.
exert control because there's an opportunity to do that, there are people that will seize on that regardless,
Mhm.
irrespective of anything else,
Yeah.
And so, my wife and I have this thing where if I'm within 7 or 8 minutes of getting to you and you text me and are like, "Hey, I feel weird in this store. There's some weird guy." Guess who's jumping in the car?
Oh, yeah.
And you just wait in front. Just wait by an employee. Don't leave because, like, you don't know what happens when you leave, the store. but stay
Right.
there.
Stay
I'm
where
on my
you are.
way. What the most recent time was probably about a year ago. I followed that guy around. So, like, he wasn't in the
You
same aisle,
became
but I
that
I
guy.
was where he was. So, like, "You're gonna walk, I'm gonna walk with you, right? And as you
Mhm.
approach where my wife was, I'm gonna speed up in front of you and go to my wife, like, so that you understand the dynamic here." And,
The hunter became
you
the
know,
prey.
like, just I always tell my kids, and I guess this could be interpreted poorly depending on how people want to interpret it, but, I'm the calmest, most patient person you will meet until I'm not, or until
Until
there's a
I'm not.
situation where I feel like there's the threat of harm to people
Mhm.
I love, and all of a sudden there's a different a
Oh,
different
yeah.
part of me that comes to the surface that,
I
you
completely
know
get that.
you know
So my girls, we haven't had the conversation with my son yet. He's social, but he's like video game social. You know what I mean?
Yep,
He's not
I get
social
it.
to the point yet where he wants to go out and hang out and do this and do that. But my girls are getting to that point because they want to go to the mall and they want to go to their friend's house and they want to
Uh-huh.
have sleepovers. And I am a victim of abuse. I survived domestic violence and also SA in college. So being somebody who has survived being a victim twice, and I don't call myself a victim, I call myself a survivor, but the reality is I was a victim of abuse. I've been very honest and open with my daughters because both of my attackers were people I knew. So one I was married to and one I went to, he was my friend. So both of my girls, we have a code word. I said, listen, I don't care where you are.
Mhm.
I don't care where you are. I have connections all across the states. If I am, I
Yep.
used to work for the federal government, so I have connections
Yep.
everywhere. All you have to do is send me that code word, and it's like a sentence, just a short sentence.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna say it because I don't wanna spoil it,
Of
but
course.
it's just I know if they're both aware, and every once in a while I'll be like, "Hey, what's our code sentence or what's our code word?" And they'll say it just so that way it's at the forefront of their mind. And I said, "I don't care if you look rude. I'd rather you be rude." It's like, what is a crime junkie? Stay rude, stay alive. That's what they say. I don't care about anybody else's feelings. If you are uncomfortable in any way, shape, or form, all you got to do is send me that and I'm there.
Yeah.
I will burn this state down. Don't play. So they know. And yeah. And once our son is to that point, we will have a similar talk with him, but we've always told him if you're ever uncomfortable or say you do go to a party that you're not supposed to be at and you do drink, we'll deal with it tomorrow. You call me tonight. We'll deal with it tomorrow. I won't yell at you. I won't scold you then. I'd rather have you alive and we can deal with that tomorrow
Yeah.
than you be scared to talk to me and I never see you again. Period. Welcome to the Parental Parent Podcast, everybody. Welcome. This is the real horror.
I mean,
Parenting.
it's so true, right? Like, safety is
Yes.
paramount to anything else, and, I know we've been trying to remind our kids that safety is a two-way street, right? Like, it's not just you feeling safe, but you being safe to other
Yes.
people, and so, with my daughter especially, we've always told her because she's more wanting to do sleepovers or go hang out with
Yes.
friends outside the house, that kinda thing, and it's like, "Hey, okay, we get it, but you call, you text, just tell us the truth. Whatever's happening, we can deal with as long as we know that that's true. If you're gonna hold stuff from us or tell us a lie, like, we can't navigate that
That's right.
in any real way." And so that has served us, thankfully, it served us really well. Boys are a whole different, like, it
Yeah.
feels like they're a whole different thing where talks about consent and talks about
Yes.
safety and like what it means for them to be a safe person.
Right.
Especially if their friends are doing things or saying things or making
Yes.
others feel like you can still step in
Yes.
helpful ways to remove not just you, but the other person that's the target from
Mhm.
and so, like, 13 and 15,
It's tough.
they get it because, like,
They get
conceptually,
it.
but they don't get it, like, nuanced in the moment. So
Like, they
that's
haven't
the
been in the situation yet.
right,
They hear you and they
right,
understand you. Because our
right.
15-year-old he'll be 15 in, like, 3 weeks, which blows my mind. But he gets it, but he's never had to kinda put it into play. But I will
That's
say,
right.
one of his little friends was talking about my daughter, and my daughter's beautiful. And this little kid was talking quite inappropriate
Mhm.
about my daughter, and because they're not blood related, he calls her his stepsister. He recognizes that she's a sibling, but the bond is still forming, they even though they've been grown up together since they were 7, But he got so mad, and I cannot remember what he said to that kid, but his instinct took over, and he told that kid, "You're not gonna talk about my sister that way," and he stopped talking to that kid altogether. He's like,
Yeah.
"I don't even want to be around him if that's how he's going to talk." He's like, "That was" he goes, "It was embarrassing, it was gross," and I was
Yeah.
like, "Good for you." Yes!
The
Yes!
lessons stick. I don't know
Yes!
that they always stick when you tell them, but
No.
somewhere, it's
Yes, they hear
burrowing
you.
in.
They might
Yeah.
not be listening completely, but they're hearing you, and then when they do something like that, and it's like, "I did it. I did something right."
And it's like the first time is the hardest time, so now you can do it again and again and as needed.
That's
That's
right.
our
Don't
that's
worry
our
about
hope
what
and
people
prayer. I
think of
mean,
you.
you know, and there's
No,
a
no.
part of this where at some point they'll be their own people in like the independent sense of the idea, right? And you just hope that what you impart in the prep phase of that sticks well enough and deep enough and strongly enough that as they navigate that things will go well as they can, you
And
know?
I love how you said you want them to be a safe place because that's very true. I tell all 3 of my kids, "I want you to be that safe person with people." And kinda like what I tried to be in the paranormal community and to friends and family who are experiencing something like whether it's hauntings or something more traumatic than that, to be a safe place, I know some people make fun of it. "Oh, you need a safe place." It's not having a room where we can calm down, it's having
Right.
somebody when you're dealing with something that is ripping you apart inside and you feel like nobody understands, having that safe place, knowing that without judgment, without
Mhm.
being demeaned or discounted, you can share your story, whether it's like whether it's paranormal or something more,
Yeah.
and knowing that that story is safe and there's no mockery and there's no and like, we joke and laugh on our podcast, but it's never at the expense of the person.
Yeah, I think it brings up a good point 'cause I think I'll just confess. There are millions of podcasts out there. There are tons of paranormal, spooky storytelling shows that
Yeah.
I love, and then there are some that I can't really get behind, and I think it's because of that approach to the storytelling, the approach to just all of it. There's a I don't think I've ever been asked this, but I'll just share it
Yeah.
just out loud, but if someone were to come to me and say, "Hey, I wanna start a spooky or a paranormal or just a storytelling show," what would your, like, big priority be? Aside from, like, audio and equipment and, like, that kinda thing, it would be careful storytelling. So,
Yes.
it's not just telling the story, the facts of the story, it's also avoiding assumptions and judgments and avoiding delving into topics that maybe you don't have expertise in or you don't have experience in, or that might be a little bit of a straw man, right? Someone who does have experience would look at that and say, "That's not true," or
Mhm.
"You're missing the mark here," and so I think there's a ton of shows, ton of great shows, and then there's a ton of shows that aren't careful in their storytelling approach that I listen to it and I bristle like you assumed mental health status or you connected this to that, which is just a massive assumption, right? We don't know. And so even in my shows, I do my best, not perfectly, of course. I do my best to try and say, like in the most recent Possession Files episode, we were talking about what is demonic possession. Well, that depends on who you ask, right? It
Right.
depends on
Yeah.
what sociocultural, like, background you have, what religious background you have, faith or no faith, like, all these things matter. And there's a point where I know specifically that I put in there, "Hey, different religions view demonic possession differently. I'm not an expert in those things, so I'm not gonna talk about them. But I am gonna talk to you about some of the things that I do have some experience and maybe some expertise in," right?
Mhm.
And people will say, "Well, you're not Roman Catholic. How are you talking?" Well, what people don't know is that I was a pastor for 10 years. And
Mhm.
so there is a
Wow,
part
I
of
didn't know that
me
either.
it's been 5 years since I've been out of the pastorate because of all the chaos that we experience now, right? With
Mhm.
politics and human
Mhm.
rights and all those things. Or when I write an episode and we're dealing with clear mental health stuff, if I can't verify it from a peer-reviewed study or a reputable source, I will either not include it or I'll say, "Hey, this is where as best we understand it or as best I understand it, this is what I think is happening." And it's sort of an invitation, whether listeners realize it or not, to say, "Hey, I don't think that's right," which I would welcome to say, "Okay, I need to go back and fix that," or to avoid just those blanket statements that I think are generally not universal, but that maybe because we want a reaction or because we're looking for some kind of response, we sort of slide into, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so I hear it. I think the concept of careful storytelling, ethical storytelling, safe storytelling is not to the exclusion of factual storytelling. It's how factual storytelling, I think, should be done. Does that
Mhm.
make sense?
No, it does, and, like, I'm sitting here thinking, "Am I one of the ones that make him cringe?"
Oh, no, no, no.
I'm, like, sitting here, like because we do make jokes and stuff, and
For sure.
I try to keep it lighthearted, but I try not to go off I don't try to, like, delve into it, like, I try to keep it very, like, "These are the facts. This is what I found," and then if I have experience with the place myself. But, yeah, I try not to especially with mental health, because there is a stigma with paranormal that paranormal is just mental health, and
That's right.
you know, I don't
Yeah.
I don't subscribe to that, and so I'm
Yeah, I
like,
don't either.
mm, I have too many experiences, and I know I'm a little bit crazy,
Uh-huh.
but still, I have had my brain scanned, and there is
Yep.
nothing wrong.
I mean, my wife is a trauma therapist, and she
Oh,
is the most,
yes.
sensitive, intuitive person I've, actually ever met. And so there's no way I would ever look at her or anybody else and say, "Oh, I don't think that's what you think it is. It might be something worse, something deeper." And I think for me, as far as joking and banter, like comedy is an equalizer, right? When we're dealing with
Yes.
stories and narratives that are heavy, that are, dark, even oppressive at times,
Yes.
think think comedy and witty joke, well placed, well timed, is actually a really, really nice thing. It sort of
Mhm.
lets the pressure out. But I think there are and I call them, especially because I think men tend to be the worst perpetrators of this. It's like the bro shows where it's like you
I get it.
are actually like dishonoring the person, because behind every story is a person, is a family, is,
Exactly.
you know, especially when you're dealing with true crime type stuff where you're not just telling a narrative, like, you're really brushing on a person and family's worst nightmare
This is
in
the
so many
worst day of
ways,
their
right? And
lives.
so it's one thing to be comedic at times, it's another thing to sort of bring the levity into the room. It's another thing to border on dishonoring and
Right.
disrespectful and, like, almost making a mockery of the thing.
Yeah.
I really struggle with that kind of thing. So and the other part is I haven't done a ton of shows because I have this, like, internal vetting process that's, like, almost gatekeepish, where it's like, I need to have listened to a handful of their episodes scattered throughout the seasons
Right.
before I would say, "Hey, I would love to come on," or definitely, like, "Let me know when you're inviting guests," like, I'm in. So,
Hey.
you're one of the 10, not even 10 shows that I've guested on, so yeah.
I love that you said that because when I don't know, when I hit at some point last year, I hit the everybody's emailing me for collabs. And it was very overwhelming, and I'm so grateful because I met so many amazing people, but I learned through that process, not everybody's deserving of my time, and
That sounds, harsh, but if
it
you
does.
kinda think of it this way, I don't know, maybe this is a sort of amateurish way to look at it, but it's like if we were in a room, right? If all
Right.
of us were in a room together, am I gonna be best friends with everybody in that room? Probably not.
No.
Am I then gonna sort of, because of I'm a person who has limited time and energy, am I gonna devote equal time to everybody? Maybe,
Mm,
probably not, and
mm-mm.
definitely not bringing them in closer, right, to
Right.
sort of proximity. And so, for me, it's partly that, where it's like, hey, if I'm gonna invite proximity to whatever degree, I want it to be honoring to me first and
Right.
equally as honoring to you as a result. And that, I think, that requires some intuition and some, like,
Mhm.
vetting to say, "Hey, I don't know that I am comfortable with this person, or that I would, based on the things I've heard, I don't know that I would, like, wanna be associated with that person,"
Yes.
right? And
That's
so
that's
I
exactly
don't
where I
think
got
it's any
to.
different than how we generally would function in an friendships or that kinda thing.
That is
I don't know.
exactly, that's how I feel, and I told Daniel, I was like, am so grateful for all the opportunities to be on everybody's shows, and I'm so grateful that people asked to come on mine, but where I made the mistake is not trusting my gut and my intuition, and it got me into spots feeling very uncomfortable with people, feeling interrogated at times,
Yep.
feeling like I was being almost attacked for my experiences, and I told him, I was like, I don't do this to get rich, and I don't do this to gain a following. I do this because I love it.
Mhm.
And I want it to be that safe place for people and their stories and to be able to share the history because these were people. These are somebody's stories and they matter and they need to be shared. But not everybody has that. And it's not that I don't walk around punching people in the face or anything like I don't like you, pow. I don't talk to everybody in real life because I'm selective and I need to be selective here to protect my space and my energy because energy
For
is
sure.
currency.
For sure. Collaboration is a two-way street, right?
Mhm.
If it's imbalanced in either direction, really, it just becomes a place where one side is using the other potentially for whatever they want, and
Right.
it's not collaboration at that point. And I think that's actually super dangerous for like podcasting is pretty open forum for when you have someone on, even if you have a plan, you can't script their response to things, right? And so, even to navigate some of that, it can be tricky, right? Where it's like this person said this, ooh, I don't think they meant
Mhm.
this, but they said this in this way. How do I edit that out? Do I ask
Uh-huh.
for clarity? Do I just scrap the episode, right? Is this gonna
Yeah.
and so for me, like I've had a lot of folks request to be on the Red Treehouse, and I will always respectfully decline and say the Red Treehouse is a solo show,
Mhm.
100% scripted, in part because I want to assume 100% responsibility for the shit that comes out of my mouth. And so it's easier for me to say, I f up. I shouldn't have said this.
That's
What I
on me.
meant was this. It's on
Right.
me. I'm learning. I'm gonna grow here and take responsibility for that than for me to then have to deal with someone else saying something, and now
Yes.
I've gotta navigate both of it, right? Both
Right.
things, them and me. And then with One Good Scare, I generally am even more picky with that one because I've had interviews that weren't great, in the past where it's like, I really can't air this show. Like, I'm sorry, I appreciate your time, but like, I can't run this show. And so now it's usually by request. Like, I'll email a person or DM a person specifically and say, hey, I would love to have you on. You pick the movie, but I would love to have you on. And that's usually after a period of time,
Following them,
And
kind of
so,
feeling them as seeing their post. You can learn a lot about
yeah,
people
you
from what they
do.
post.
You do.
I'm
And
like,
every now and again so, I'll give you a little bit of my terrible social media strategy because it is I hate social media. I'm
I do
like the
too.
worst at it.
I hate it.
I'm an obvious elder millennial in how I use social media, but
Mhm.
every now and again, every couple weeks, I'll pepper my Instagram with a narrative something I posted on Threads, and it's always political. It's always like a raw not a raw thought because I try to be thoughtful in the things I post and as nuanced as I can with character limits, but it's always something that's like kind of it could make some people mad. And
Right.
inevitably,
I get it.
whenever I post that stuff, I lose 10 to 12 followers almost within the first hour. They just disappear, right? But it sort of lets me know, or I'll get responses or comments. And guys, if you're listening to this and you leave shitty comments on my Instagram, I will immediately delete them. I don't respond. I don't
Mhm.
block you. I don't unfollow. It's just going to disappear because, like, I don't have time for that shit. But it always lets me know, like, okay, that's not a person I would want to invite, even though they have a big following, even though they have a ton of influence in the sphere. Definitely not going to accept an invitation. Definitely not going to invite them onto the show on my end. And so it has served me well to this point because I haven't had any controversies, and God knows that people love their controversies in
You got that right.
this
They love
sphere.
the drama.
Love it. The rage baiting is a real thing for sure.
I totally agree. I actually have started putting a disclaimer. I started last summer because I ran into something. And it says, "This is for entertainment purposes only. Creator reserves the right to edit, remove, or delete podcast as," and I can't remember exactly what it says, but pretty much essentially, if it no longer aligns with the creator,
Yeah.
I'm gonna take it out. I'm gonna
Yeah.
take it down. If I don't wanna be associated with you, guess what? Pull it because it's mine.
Yeah.
I work for myself. If something has happened after your show airs, sorry, not sorry, it's coming down.
Yeah.
I don't wanna be associated. Ghost
100%.
gossip is my baby. It makes me happy, and if you don't bring me joy or you slander my name, okay, you
Yeah.
do you, but I'm gonna pull this and I'm gonna keep moving forward because
Yeah.
you showed me everything I need to know, and that's it. I'm not done. I don't hate you. I don't need to talk crap about you publicly. I don't need to do anything. I'm just gonna
That's it.
keep moving forward. I'm gonna remove the association and keep pushing forward.
That's it. And social media moves fast, but the internet has a long memory. And so,
Mhm.
how often do we see people digging through years worth of postings and tweets and videos, right? And it's like, hey,
Mhm.
this person, and it's like, okay, I get it. And so for me on the front end, I'd rather do the hard work on the front end of that and say,
Yes.
I accept responsibility for myself 100%. Please bring it to me if there's a concern, but
Yes.
I am not assuming responsibility for you if I have
Right.
questions about you, you know?
Right.
So,
I think that's completely
you know,
fair, and that is something that I've learned because I started in late 2022, early 2023, and I cannot remember, and I tell people I cannot remember because when I was working for the government, it was really sporadic, it wasn't, like, consistent, and then I ended up pulling everything because I had imposter syndrome, and I was like, "I'm suck at this," and then I went to the Crescent, fell in love all over again, I was like, "No, this is exactly what I need to be doing," so I put everything back up, so my timeline is just like, so I have no idea when Ghost Gossip was actually born, but I know it was somewhere between the end of 2022, beginning of 2023, but it wasn't until I started putting myself out there after August 2024 that I started meeting people and learning somewhat the hard way because I am a bleeding heart and I want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt and
yeah.
everybody a safe place. And then I quickly realized after doing that, not everybody deserves my safe place.
Yeah, it's true. You know, it's a struggle sometimes to learn to guard your peace, right? Like we hear
Yes.
people say that I'm guarding my peace, but usually that's born out of some form of deep conflict, right? And
Yeah.
it takes time and it takes a lot of like introspection and self-awareness. And then to actually do that preemptively to say, "Hey, I'm not treading in that direction." That can take a really long time. And so I've
Mhm.
learned that in so many hard ways to do that, right? And so even with One Good Scare where I am more open to folks coming on the show, I always tell them to pick the movie. And it's a strategic thing on my part because it's also like, the most recent episode was Alien. Michael's a just a he's a great guy. I knew that I could have a conversation with him about some of the deeper themes of the movie, which involve feminism and loss of, bodily autonomy and those kinds of things in a safe space to say, "Hey, like, this parallels so much of what we see in the world around us now, where there's human rights are being trampled on and violated," but it was also a space where I could look at him and say, "Dude, like, we also have to acknowledge that we're 2 guys who have a ton of privilege as men in the world, and, like, we can't have this conversation as if those other realities are not true." And so
Right.
but I would not have that same level of conversation about Alien with someone that I knew maybe didn't care about human rights or had different responses
Different
to human
views,
rights
different viewpoints
you
on it.
know, and so it's a strategy on my end preemptively to say, "You're gonna pick the movie, I'm gonna angle my part of the conversation in this direction, maybe towards a tough topic or away from it,
Right.
and then I'm gonna sort of mediate between if I need to."
Yeah, I
So,
get that.
some method to the madness, mostly
Well,
madness,
see,
though.
and thankfully, that's kinda what I'm doing now by now that I know people in the podcast world and I know people in the paranormal community, and I've been putting myself out there for a year, now I'm more comfortable with people, and now I'm like, "Okay, instead of just having random people that I've never talked to on, let's ask people that I'm comfortable with on to
Mhm.
come on, have a conversation, people that I've interacted with and I've talked to for a year or so, and that I know will make a good show, and I know that they are,
Yeah.
similar in my show, and then that way I can continue building relationships with new people, but not like face to face recording,
Yeah.
instant. We're learning each other right then. And then I'm finding out real quick, God.
Yeah, I hear it. I hear it 100%. It's interesting. The Red Treehouse has sort of taken a slight turn. Again, solo hosted, fully scripted, start to finish. Everything is word, every punctuation mark, every pause is scripted to, exactness. But I've also found that there's a handful of stories that I've told over the last maybe year or so that have allowed me, because again, I know myself well enough to say, hey, I can infuse some maybe more specific discussion, like the Red Barn murder. This is really a story about violence against women. This is a thing
I know
where
that one.
privileged men who wanted his own, his cake and eat it too, and
That was a
when
tough one.
it was. And then even this most recent one with Bella and the Witch Elm, episode 220, was like, this also is a story about the erasure of a woman, like the attempted erasure of a woman, like hiding her, all these things. And it's like, okay, I'm going to use, because I'm not in an interview, I can craft and
Yes.
formulate how my own thoughts and infuse it into the storytelling narrative afterwards to say, hey,
Mhm.
let's reflect on this story, not just as a tragedy or like, damn, that's shitty, or like, I can't believe that happened, but also like, let's be introspective to say, like, hey, there's some real human rights stuff going on here. It's telling of the culture, it's telling of the way that people have disposed of other people who
Yeah.
were vulnerable, marginalized, all these things, right? And so I haven't gotten any kickback on it, and I wouldn't care if I did, but there's just a thing involved in this where I'm learning that part of having my own voice is also saying, like, I want us to think about this. Here's an angle that I think we should think about that I absolutely didn't have or wasn't really super comfortable with sharing at the front end. Does that make sense?
I understand that completely. When I worked for the government, I mean, I started at 25, so my brain was newly developed when I started working there. I wasn't allowed to have an opinion. When you take that oath of office, you cannot have a public opinion on public things going on, political, religion, anything. Like, you can't talk about it. Like, you can have your opinions, but they gotta be quiet. And so I got very used to not speaking publicly about a lot of things, and I still am not completely comfortable because I don't like fighting with strangers on the internet, you know what I mean? So I'm just
Yeah.
like, it is, and so I keep a lot of that to myself, but I do appreciate when people aren't and they are okay standing up for what they believe in. My husband and I have a lot of debates, and he is, big strong man and was raised that way, and he has got 2 teenage daughters
Yeah.
who are being raised by a very strong woman. And I'm very vocal about women
Yeah.
and equal and this and that, and we've had a lot of debates, and I said, "You know what, honey? You're just going to have to realize that I understand that you're not like what they should be scared of, but a
Right.
lot of things are, and we have to prepare our girls
Yeah.
to face that because the reality of it is they're not gonna be under our roof much longer. They're getting older, they're 14 and God, almost 14 and 15. They're gonna be yeah, good lord. The days are numbered, and we have to teach them that they have to stand up for themselves, they have to be
Yeah.
strong, and not everybody is going to like them because of it, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
So, yes,
Yeah.
I get it. I get it, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it. As somebody who didn't have a voice for a long, long time and still, I still keep it quiet because I kinda lean away from drama, and I don't want people like, "I have my feelings, I don't need you telling me they're wrong." But I do, I respect them, and I see your post, and I'm like,
Without fail, they get the most traction, and
"Yeah,
it's not
they're"
always good, you know?
No.
But we tell our daughter, like, "You can always come home," but the implication in that is you have to leave here for that to happen, right? And so,
Mhm.
it'd be one thing if you just were here perpetually for the rest of your life, great, like, it'd be fine. It'd be bad in other ways, but it'd be fine. My wife and I joke with the kids, like, there's gonna come a point where we text you, we're old enough, and we text you, "Hey, we're going out for coffee." And then, like, 6 hours later, we tell you we're in Colorado at a coffee shop because, like, you guys gotta fend for yourselves, like, we're just doing our own thing. But, yeah, it's preparing them for out there, whatever out there looks like, and that's the variable that's the scariest because you don't know.
You
You
don't.
know, because you have your own experiences, but you don't
Mhm.
know based on them, on who they are,
The
you
world
know?
is scary. The world
It
can be
is.
so scary.
It is. The scariest monsters are human monsters that roam
Yes.
in broad daylight, guys, by far.
Yes. I tell people all the time, they're like, "You're not scared of the dead?" I'm like, "I'm more scared of the living." Any day of the week, I am more scared of the living. I have been spooked by the dead. But the dead, that's not who victimized me.
Yep. It's the truth.
Yep.
100%.
Yeah, and I know some people don't like that, and I'm glad we ended up here. I didn't have a plan for today. I wanted it to be organic and flow because we are 2 parents, we are 2 people with shows, and I'm glad, it I wanted it to just be genuine, and
Yeah.
so I appreciate having this conversation with you, and it's been great, and it's not so much paranormal, so sorry, people, but we do have paranormal and horror and true crime podcasts, so
I guess I should say I believe in ghosts and
there you go.
all the supernatural paranormal stuff, so I'm a
How's
believer.
Henry doing? Is his name Henry?
It's been quiet, and I think we've just been so much of our energy has been trying to get out of this house that,
Yeah.
it's funny, I went on Liam's show, Spooky Shed, a couple
Yes,
weeks back,
Liam!
and, the first thing he asked me is like, "We always tell someone to leave something in the shed. What are you leaving?" And I said, "I've been thinking about it, Liam, since you mentioned it to me a couple weeks back.
Yeah.
I am leaving this whole ass haunted house in the shed. We're putting a whole house in your shed, dude."
I can only imagine
It's
his
like,
response.
uh, so we talked about that and all the things, but it's been mostly quiet. I think the house has run its course for us. We're ready to move on, and so, yeah, we've got about a month, so can't wait to get there.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. I'm so glad we got to squeeze this in before, you start going like, "Blah," and I
Yeah,
really appreciate you coming on and
of
having
course.
the conversation with me. I've always really enjoyed our conversation on social media, and then when we had my episode on your show, it was so much fun. Truly enjoyed talking to you, so thank you so much for coming on and sharing just your thoughts and your stories with my listeners. I appreciate you.
I appreciate the opportunity for sure. It's been great, as always.
I'm just so glad that I made it onto one good scare. I have arrived. Well, he's selective, y'all. Hello.
I love it, and if you wanna be a guest,
Too
there's a
bad.
whole
I'm just
application
kidding.
process, so just
Too
let me know
dang
and I'll
bad.
send you the application.
I didn't have an application.
You didn't. Most people don't. Most of the time, I'm just reaching out and like, "Hey, would love to
I'm
have you on."
special. I'm
So,
special.
yeah,
But if you reach out to him, guess what? Application.
that's it. I'll send you a whole Google Doc and, background check, fingerprinting, the whole 9. At
Mhm.
minimum, it'll be a scouring of your social media presence.
You
So,
got that right. I'm telling you,
at minimum.
when I was in the dating world before I met my husband, I would be like,
Mhm.
I need to see their social media, and I'd become
No, I
friends with them
believe
on
it.
social media, and I'd be like, "Oh boy, nope,
Yeah.
I'm good."
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a real thing, for
Mhm,
sure.
mhm. Well, thank you so much. Tell everybody where they can find you.
So, the Red Treehouse, One Good Scare, anywhere you stream podcasts, Spotify, Apple Pods, Pocket Casts, anywhere. Just type in the Red Treehouse, you'll find it. Type in One Good Scare, you'll find it. Amongst other One Good Scare shows, just dig a little, you'll find mine. Social media, I'm really mostly only active on Instagram and Threads, and that's at Red Treehouse Pod for both. I don't have an Instagram or Threads, or I don't really use the Instagram and Threads for One Good Scare. Usually you use it for collaborative purposes and that's it. And then I do have a One Good Scare TikTok page, which I love and hate.
I hate
So
TikTok.
depending on my day of the week, if I love it, I'm on it. If I don't love it, or if I have times where I'm not, then yeah. But that's One Good Scare Pod. So find me, follow, let me know. If you love the show, leave 5-star reviews, all those things. I love that. And I'm super interactive. So if you have questions, you want to suggest a show topic, feedback, anything, I always do my best to be communicative, kind, all those things. So
Yep,
definitely
and I
find me.
joke, if you don't have a five-star review to leave, send an email, and we'll send it straight to HR, AKA
Yeah.
Daniel.
Yeah. I always tell people just sleep on it and forget about it in the morning because that's
That's
usually what
right.
happens.
Right, yeah, like, seriously, you don't come on, if it's not 5, you don't need to leave that. You don't need to leave that,
What's
please,
the
okay?
difference between
What?
a 4 and 5-star review, guys? You're
Well, everybody go follow Will. I'll have everything in the show notes. I'll have some links and his handles and everything, and it's also One Good Scare and The Red Treehouse. It's really great stories. He's an excellent storyteller. You can listen to it as you fall asleep. Trust me when I say he does. He's a great storyteller. So go check him out. While you're there, follow me, Ghost Gossip, Ghost Gossip Pod, Ghost Gossip Podcast, and email all of your ghost gossip to ghostgossip247 at gmail.com. Until next time, they'll see you later. Bye.